Hello and welcome to Atop the Fourth Wall, where bad comics burn. Well, it's 10 years later, and after that long, it's time to finally close the book on Youngblood. Well, its first volume anyway. Youngblood has had like a cumulative 100+ issues from several volumes and team-up books and whatnot. And of course, there's still the 0th issue to look at, probably do that next year. But of course, Youngblood has a very special place on this show. The original text review of Youngblood #1 is how I got started recapping and reviewing comic books. We coined the phrase Youngblood's disease to describe the bizarre tactics of artists to remove detailing of eyes in comic art, leaving them a void from which those afflicted will never see properly again. At least until the artist decides that they have pupils again. It introduced so many of you to Rob Liefeld, whom some people are now saying finally got decent with his artwork, after like 30 years or so of not being so decent. But even forgiving his artistic foibles, there's also the problems with him as a person, at times lauded as a massive enthusiast about the industry, while at the same time trying to cheat money out of Jack Kirby's widow, failing to pay his employees, and then not bothering to draw his own damn books unless someone is actually standing over him making sure he does it. Oh, but Youngblood #10 takes the cake, my friends. You know those lists that fans will often send to me about the top 40 worst Rob Liefeld drawings of the like? Yeah, there's one that ain't on those lists, but it's in this book. It's the worst. I won't be showing it to you either, and you'll understand why when we get to it. This is your official warning. While I'm not showing anything, I am going to talk about it a bit. If you'd be negatively affected by the sensitive topic of suicide, even just the subject itself is too much, here are the time codes in the video where I start and stop talking about it, so you can skip past it if you so choose. In the meantime, however, previously on last year, Youngblood #9 was an out-of-continuity story for Image X Month, where all the Image creators swapped books for some reason. It was still terrible, but it was certainly better than anything else that had happened so far. Previously on other issues, Youngblood was apparently in the midst of a crossover with Team Youngblood, not that it was ever advertised on the books themselves. That was the book that came out more frequently than the one that had actually started this little franchise. Our heroes, having recruited more people that are completely unremarkable and unmemorable, are off to Canada to fight some dude named Maddock, while Chapel, one of the more murderous, deranged characters of the team, and yet is still considered a hero for some reason, has gone off to confront Spawn, because he was the one who killed Spawn originally, which is why this is happening in Youngblood and not over in Spawn. In any event, let's dig into Youngblood #10 and see how bad this final issue of the first run can be.
Linkara's gonna teach you all a lesson you won't learn. Brodsky, you're not the smartest. Liefeld, you're not an artist. Anyone who's had a bad comic published, it could be your turn. Linkara, he's a man punch, wears a birdie hat. Linkara, he has a magic gun. Where'd he purchase that? Linkara, coins, robots, Amazon and trucks. Linkara, this comic sucks. Linkara. Youngblood, 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 Youngblood.
The cover is awful, which should surprise 0 of you at this point. You've got Chapel doing aerobics front and center with his leg stretching exercises. Seriously, I can totally imagine a workout video with these poses. All right, now lift your guns up and down and up and down and squat and up and down and up and down. And I never really realized how stupid Chapel looks. If it was just the insane clown posse makeup, whatever, it would give him something unique. But then he has the cyborg earmuffs and what can only be described as a pipe organ strapped to his back. What the hell are those? Are they supposed to be other guns he's carrying? I mean, this was the 90s. I wouldn't put it past the artwork to just have a bunch of guns on his back.
Dude! When you have that much muscle mass, you need some way to release all that heat. That's why real heroes of the 90s have cooling vents on their backs. Also because they're so cool!
Oh, but it gets better, because we've also got an example of why Liefeld tended to avoid drawing feet, because here one looks more like some webbed duck feet while the other just looks tiny and smushed. I think the perspective is supposed to make the 1 foot farther back, but you couldn't tell because the leg sizes are pretty much the same. But for me, the crowning bit of nonsense are the little straps of cloth that he has wrapped around his biceps for no reason. Not only are they just swinging around in every direction they can as if gravity was all over the place, but I'm also pretty sure those are the same tattered armbands that the Ultimate Warrior had in his comic. Are they gonna start talking to Chapel too and telling him to asphalt this asshole? Spawn is up in the corner, and that's fine, but then inexplicably beneath him is a skull, I think? Is that supposed to be Chapel's face paint, but standalone? The Terminator? I don't know. We open in New York City, where we had left off before, with Chapel having just killed a bunch of homeless people to get to Spawn.
What's it gonna be, Spawn? Are you gonna do the splits with me, or do I have to kill even more people?
Chapel wants to know all of Spawn's secrets, in particular how the hell he's back after, Chapel shot him.
I mean, come on, man. It's not every day one of the guys I wasted in the line of duty comes back to life. I want to know how you did it.
I mean, it's obviously not a healthy regimen of exercise and weightlifting. Have you seen these biceps? Also, nice grammatical error with the apostrophe in guys.
You don't know what you're asking, Chapel. Where I've been, even you don't want to go there.
You don't want a Youngblood movie, Chapel! I had my own movie, and it did not end well. Chapel threatens to go out and kill some more homeless people if Spawn doesn't start spilling the beans. From what I gather in the issue that this continues from, he can't just waste Chapel without using up a bunch of his energy doing so. But if he does, he won't have enough power to save the lives of all the homeless people Chapel has already shot. And that's just a guess since I don't know enough about Spawn.
There's been enough killing here tonight. I'll tell you what you need to know.
First, if you have to stitch your face back together with a shoelace because of Batman, be sure to take off the aglets before you start stringing them through. And so Spawn explains to Chapel his origin story about being murdered and then winding up in hell, where he begged for a second chance at life and ended up resurrected in his current state.
5 years had passed before I returned, and in that time my wife remarried and bore a child with another man. I always wanted a child, Bruce, but that was the one thing I could never give her. In a way, this is almost worse than hell. On the other hand, though, woo! Bachelor life!
Chapel realizes that if Spawn could beat death, then that means he could do it too. Well, sure, but I've got to imagine the devil's got like a stack of forms as tall as some of the artwork in this comic. Full of people requisitioning a second chance at life, dude. You'll be lucky if he clears that paperwork by the time 200 more years have passed on Earth. Meanwhile, we cut to Canada's Northwest Territories, where Youngblood is engaging Maddock and one of his agents. Warwolf.
Werewolf?
No, werewolf. Where? Say it.
Warwolf is battling against Nightsaber, who you might recall as being the Youngblood member who was Australian but Gambit.
I sure hope that swizzle stick you got there ain't no symbol of our everlasting love for one another, Mickey, 'cause I mean to break it off.
Is that a boner joke?
You're wasting your breath, matey. I'm not near as that excited to see ya.
Oh dear lord, it was a boner joke. Why is Warwolf making a boner joke about his bow staff? Boner staff? That could work. Warwolf transforms into an even larger, more bestial form and hits Nightsaber twice in a panel that one might think was simply copied, pasted, and mirrored, but fret not. Clearly, Rob redrew the panel. I mean, since when was he incredibly lazy or anything? Perish the thought.
What's the matter, pretty boy? You gone all quiet on me. You waxing nostalgical about how our roles been reversed since those far-off days when you was the troublemaker and I was the hero? Or you just choking on your fear?
Well, mostly I'm mad that you had to exposit all that since neither of our characters have gotten any backstory up to this point. The others are in the midst of fighting generic robot goons, but are aware that Nightsaber is in trouble. Who are the others? Why, Task and Silence, of course. You remember them, right? Of course you don't. They were only in one issue of Youngblood that I spotlighted 2 years ago. Silence, despite her costume just being a two-piece bikini, at least has a cool name and psychic powers, so that makes her slightly more memorable than her compatriot here, Task, who's basically just palette swap Shaft. And with a codename like that, you could give him any powers and personality and it would fit. He's like one of those online superhero generator characters with a bunch of the default options turned on.
Monica Kane hasn't uttered a single word since the day her new gene spawned abilities activated some 18 months ago.
Yeah, it might have something to do with how her body has been misshapen and warped as we see here. What with her compressed stomach, massive thighs, and more athletic lower legs. It's probably also hard to breathe, what with that tight strap around her breasts that's so airtight it's form-fitted to them.
What she doesn't communicate in words, though, is she more than makes up for with actions.
And those actions being telepathy, since we saw her just the previous page say something to Task with her mind. I'm so glad this book has a writer and an editor who are paying so much attention to what's happening in it. So, what is Task's deal?
The result of Project Youngblood's desire to create a perfect soldier, possessed of limitless stamina. Task long ago bid farewell to the rigors of disease and fatigue.
Well, except for his crippling case of Youngblood's disease, of course. Oh, and since he feels no fatigue, he has to constantly eat and poop a lot or he dies. The scientists were unable to replicate the results that created Task.
Not that Task minded one way or the other. For him, his abilities became an elixir.
They restored his mana? After he takes out some more robots, more caption boxes that tell us stuff about him instead of letting us learn anything about the character through dialogue or anything. I'm beginning to think Youngblood existed strictly to sell action figures with all these quotes supposed to be the blurbs in the backs of the cardboard. I mean, considering how I'm swimming in these things, clearly it worked!
Until now, Task's only outlet had been the seemingly endless battery of tests administered by his trainers in the blood pool. The virtual reality programs and live field simulations were nothing like this, though.
Wait, so Task is just Raiden from Metal Gear Solid? I mean, holy crap, he's even running around with a sword.
The thrill of real battle is like a shot of pure adrenaline to his system. And when it ends all too quickly, even he is surprised by the results.
Wait, when you stab robots, they die? What the hell? Anywho, Badrock is facing Blackrock, that villain who actually deliberately looks exactly like Badrock because they have the same source of their powers. I think. I can't remember anymore, and it's so hard for me to care. He's also rambling about how he's so much better than Badrock.
A well-known fact about professional criminals like Blackrock. They tend to boast and brag about themselves during the heat of battle.
As opposed to Youngblood, who have caption boxes to boast and talk about them in the heat of battle. Task comes in holding his sword, well, like this. Seriously, is this a real move? Because it looks more like an action figure that has its arms completely behind it. Is that the secret to Rob Liefeld? That he's been using He-Man toys as his art models this whole time? Anyway, Task cuts off Blackrock's head, but whatever happened to him allows him to just grab his own head and reattach it without any problem. However, Silence comes in, and this is a real highlight of the two extremes of the art: balloon or stick figure. Anyway, Silence uses her psychic abilities to knock him out on this 2-page spread that I have to turn on its side in order to read it. And then she gets to gloat about it in another 2-page spread I have to turn on its side to remind you all that her spine is broken in multiple places and she's pissed about it. Well, I tell a lie. She's not mad. That expression has another name.
No surprise!
Back over to Chapel and Spawn. Chapel threatens to shoot him if he steps any closer. Spawn tells him that what he wants to do is wrong.
Maybe it was wrong for you, Al, but for me, this is my ticket to ride, buddy. I want this.
Look, you might want it, but nobody else wants a Youngblood version of Ticket to Ride. What would even be the cities in it? Man, Chapel's got perfect teeth. Youngblood's dental plan must be amazing. Chapel talks about how his life has gotten sucky over the last few months, in particular how a friend of his informed him of what had been done. When he told me the agency had been infecting me with a specialized strain of the HIV virus over the length of my career. So I looked this up, because that plan sounds like one of the dumbest ever in the history of this show. And it's only slightly less stupid. The idea was that this particular strain was dormant unless their agency activated it. Why it needed to be HIV and not just some other poison or the like is not made clear, but it's made even dumber when you realize that, at least according to Wikipedia, Chapel is a known womanizer. I don't know if that's really the case or not, since in the 10 issues of this series I've covered, we saw him sleeping with one woman in the first issue, which at this point feels like a million years ago. But if that is supposed to be the case, then congratulations! Every woman he slept with, assuming he didn't use a condom, and really, I cannot envision this guy doing that, has this strain. Well, some might scoff, that's not a big problem. As long as it remains dormant among all these partners, it shouldn't really be an issue. Yeah, funny thing about that, one of the things that's kept scientists from developing a vaccine or cure for HIV is the fact that it mutates like crazy! The idea that they have this one dormant strain that they can just keep as a safeguard is laughable considering how HIV works! And you gave it to the guy known for having sex! But since we need to accept this stupid plot point to move forward with Chapel's story here, let's continue. Chapel thought he was a dead man walking. Wind had me shuffled in and out of that joke-ass Bloodstrike outfit. I mean, did you ever try to do that rub-off Bloodstain gimmick on its cover? It never worked! So then Chapel realized that if Spawn could come back from the dead, then maybe he could too. And indeed, that's what he now plans to do. Kill himself and come back even more powerful. I've got bigger plans for my return. Plans that will change everything forever!
You magnificent bastard, I read your book!
Hey, Chapel, any plan that requires you to kill yourself as step one probably needs a bit more workshopping. Spawn tries to get him to stop, but it's no good. Chapel shoots himself in the head. As I said at the beginning of this episode, I will not be showing you the 2-page spread of his suicide, because it is absolutely tasteless. It's frankly disgusting that it ever saw print. It's not like Liefeld tried to put it in silhouette or something. No, we needed to see the full gore of the scene in its already badly drawn detail. And I mean gore. I feel uncomfortable even describing any major details, so I will not be doing that either. And I could criticize so much else about it. How Chapel is holding the gun in a weird way. How the gun itself is so ridiculous, and it's apparently a laser pistol according to the text boxes. Just the actual effect of the shot. But it doesn't really matter, because the act itself, drawing a suicide that he apparently reveled in every bit of grisly line work, not to make any kind of point, not to show off the absolute horror of the act, but just because he probably thought it looked cool. I might be wrong about that or his intentions, but this is Rob Liefeld, and he has earned no benefit of the doubt. And it's not helped that he specifically thanked another artist, Stephen Platt, for layout assistance and inspiration for the bit. And here's the best part. They show this graphic, gory suicide, but they made sure on a previous page to censor the word ass. Because, you know, this is a classy book. This sequence is terrible already looking at it in 2018, but then you realize the surrounding context of this. Chapel probably would not be considering this idea if not for the fact that he is HIV positive. He even admits that he sees himself as a dead man walking.
This came out in 1994, when AIDS became the leading cause of death for Americans aged 25 to 44, before multi-drug therapies and treatments were widely available, if even available at all. For many, being HIV positive was a death sentence, to the point where people took their own lives because of that news. And the creative team of this book had the audacity to turn something as real, as horrible, and truly tragic as that. Not to examine the realities of it. Not to show the feelings that people had at the time that they had to deal with. Not to explore depression or any sense of hopelessness that could bring someone to do such a thing. No. Just a minor plot point for their character's evil plan. And yet, said character is supposed to be a good guy, I guess. The next generation of heroes, everybody. So with that out of the way, let's get to talking about how this comic would be horrendous even without that moment. This is Spawn's reaction to the event, and I should note that he's not crying out, "No!" because of the act itself, but because he doesn't want Chapel to go through what he went through, the deal with Satan and all that. I don't even know how Chapel or Spawn thought this idea would work anyway. Do all mercenaries get the chance to become a demon when they die? Is that like written into their contracts? And then there's the artwork. The shoelaces through Spawn's face have not been consistent in any of the panels drawn in this book, but it really takes the cake when you have the shoelaces going over his mouth. The idea was to stitch it back together after the batarang hit it. It's not like the face is in danger of falling off completely. And shoelaces are not really known for their elasticity. Why would you ever connect his upper and bottom lips like that? How are they not just hanging loose during all this? Man, I guess we should have been using shoelaces instead of rubber bands this whole time. Oh, and of course, the comic is not over yet. What? Aren't you invested at all in Warwolf versus Nightsaber? No? Well, too bad. If I have to go through this, so do you. Somehow, Nightsaber gets freed and he shoots at the monster. Warwolf, piss off, mate. This comic can piss off. Shaft soon arrives overhead, revealing that he shot some arrows into Warwolf to help Nightsaber turn the tables. It's yet another 2 pages turned on their side. It's not even a spread. You could have done all this on 1 page. The team thinks they're almost done with the fight, but then Maddock himself shows up in all his boring glory. He knocks out most of the team, save for Shaft, who just fires some arrows that disable him. Well, thank God that this menace that has been an ongoing problem for Youngblood across 2 books and multiple issues has been taken down by some pointy sticks. One might almost think that this comic was as poorly written as it is poorly drawn. Maddock rambles about how this isn't the end, and Shaft rambles in return that, nuh-uh, it totally is. And eventually, we'll round up all your kind and give you the kind of treatment you've been long overdue. Our heroes, everybody. We cut to an interlude in the sewers. It's happening. Can you feel it? The overwhelming boredom? Yeah, that started at least 9 issues ago. The fabric of space and time strains and contorts. And finally, it is ripped asunder. Frankly, given any superhero universe where the space-time continuum is getting ripped apart and put back together again, I would not be surprised if it had the tensile strength of tissue paper. Some ninja dude is being chased through a dimensional portal by purple guys. Over the course of many lifetimes, he has been many things. Hunter, warrior, seer, insurance salesman. Today, though, in this lifetime, he is Link! Man, the Zelda timeline is even more messed up than we thought if Youngblood is involved in it. Link is met by Shaft's dad from several issues ago. And that's it. Thanks for introducing this interlude plot point in the middle of your last regular issue! Oh, and it's another 2-page spread. Thank goodness we spent so much time on stuff like a giant image of a guy we've met like once before instead of the defeat of the villain. Anyway, back to the team. Shaft is congratulating everybody on a job well done, and Badrock points out that Troll didn't do anything. Hey, cut me some slack, Lumpy. Somebody had to mind this ship, know what I mean? Hey, I'm okay with that. It means we didn't have to see as much of Troll. All of a sudden, Silence cries out in pain.
Yug!
Silence, what is it? Are you okay?
The painkillers wore off! My spine! And now enjoy this splash page of Silence's face. If Rob was struggling to spread this story over 40 pages, why did he even bother having it be that long? All of you listen. I have just sensed a terrible disturbance. As if millions of people who were subscribed to this book in comic shops read it and suddenly canceled their subscriptions. The coming of a great darkness! Yeah, it's called Volume 2. I'll get to that eventually. And so our comic ends with one last splash page, where we see a demonic version of Chapel standing over an image of Spawn and his dead body. I'm not certain, but I have the feeling we have all suffered a great loss. That a friend has fallen. Chapel was an amoral, psychopathic, murderous jackass who killed a bunch of hobos for no other reason than he wanted Spawn's attention. Don't try to play up like he was some great hero and friend. This comic sucks! It's amazing to me that this book and what it did isn't more talked about. Sure, Rob Liefeld has become a punching bag and a laughing stock in the industry, so you read almost anything of his and it feels all the same. But dear Lord, it's incredible that something like what happened in this book isn't more well known. Youngblood was probably considered the flagship book of Image when it launched, the first comic out of the company, and 2 years later it hadn't even reached 12 issues before it got canned and relaunched. Even ignoring the despicable worst moment in it, the artwork is terrible, with exaggerated proportions and over-the-top violence substituting storytelling or sequential art, splash pages and two-page spreads padding things out because of the sheer laziness of the team's creator, and the writing is insipid and dull, telling us things about characters in text boxes about how cool and awesome they are, while they destroy robots without ever making any of these people feel like people. The plot about Chapel and Spawn is even dumber when you consider there's no reason for Spawn to even be involved in these events other than Chapel asking, hey, how did you come back to life? After 10 issues, I know as much about these characters as I did when I started writing reviews 11 years ago. Youngblood sucks, and I'll probably be telling you about them for the next 50 years at the rate I'm going. But let's be honest, no one wants to see too much of this garbage at once. On that note, next week, more of this garbage. You see, there's still yet another comic that was a text review I never made into a video. The first issue of a Bad Rock miniseries. Good news, it's better than this comic. Bad news, that just means it's on the level of bad for every other issue of Youngblood. Nightsaber even says the F word in a censored bit. Watch the language, Slick. My virgin ears and all.